It was October 6, 1973, Yom Kippur, the holiest day in Israel. The streets were silent, people were praying, and soldiers were home with their families. Suddenly, air raid sirens cut through the calm. Explosion echoed across the desert. Egyptian and Syrian forces had launched a coordinated surprise attack. Within minutes, Israel found itself at war on two fronts, in the Sinai Peninsula and the Golan Heights. The shock was total. The war that began the morning would become one of the most intense and emotional conflicts in the modern history. At 2 p.m., more than 200 Egyptian aircraft roared across the Suez Canal, striking Israeli positions. Behind them, thousands of Egyptian soldiers surged forward. They carried portable bridges and water cannons, using them to break down the tall sand barriers of the Bar Lev Line. Israeli defenses, thought to be impenetrable, collapsed within hours. The Egyptians crossed the canal and planted their flags on the eastern bank. For the first time since 1967, Arab forces regained the lost ground, and Cairo celebrated a long-awaited victory. While Egypt attacked from south, Syrian tanks rolled into the Golan Heights from the north. The terrain was rocky and narrow, but the assault was massive. Hundreds of tanks and armed vehicles charged forward under heavy artillery. Israeli defenders were outnumbered 5 to 1. Communication broke down, and Israeli units fought desperately to slow the Syrian advance. For a moment, it seemed northern Israel itself was at risk. Families fled town near the border, the skies filled with smoke and the sound of battle. Inside Israel, panic spread quickly. Prime Minister Golda Meir and Defense Minister Moshe Dayan met in an underground command room, receiving reports of losses on both fronts. Dayan, once the hero of 1967, now feared national debate. He whispered, "This is the end of the Third Temple." But Golda Meir refused to surrender. She ordered full mobilization of Israeli reserves. Within hours, tens of thousands of soldiers rushed to the front lines. Israel's survival now depended on their courage. The attacks were not random. For years, Egyptian President Anwar Sadat and Syrian leader Hafez al-Assad had secretly coordinated a joint plan. They wanted to break the sense of Israeli invincibility after the 1967 defeat. Sadat's goal was not just to reclaim territory, but to restore the Arab pride and force the world to negotiate. The timing was perfect. Yom Kippur ensured Israel would be unprepared, and global attention would be slow to respond. The Arab armies had learned from past mistakes. This time they were ready for a prolonged fight. After days of chaos, Israel begins to recover. The arrival of reserve forces transformed the battlefield. In the Golan Heights, Israeli tanks unit fought one of the fiercest armed battles in history. They halted the Syrian advance and pushed the invaders back towards Damascus. In the Sinai, Israeli air power struck hard, targeting Egyptian supply lines and bridges. Slowly, momentum shifted. Israeli commanders developed a new plan to counterattack across the Suez Canal, a daring move that would decide the war. Led by General Ariel Sharon, Israeli troops crossed the Suez Canal in a surprise night operation. Using pontoon bridges, they penetrated deep into Egyptian territory. Within days, Sharon's forces surrounded Egypt's Third Army, cutting off its supplies and threatening Cairo itself. What began a successful Arab offensive had turned into a dangerous trap. Egyptian commanders pleaded for Suez help, and the world watched nervously as both superpowers, the United States and the USSR, were drawn closer to confrontation. The war was no longer just a regional fight. The United States began an emergency alert, sending tanks, ammunition, and aircraft to Israel. The Soviet Union responded by supplying massive aid to Egypt and Syria. The Middle East became the center of global tension, and the threat of direct US-Soviet conflict loomed large. Both sides placed their nuclear forces on alert. Diplomats rushed to find a solution before the conflict spiraled into a world war. As the fighting continued, Arab oil producers decided to strike back economically, led by Saudi Arabia. The OPEC declared an oil embargo on nations supporting Israel. Oil prices quadrupled, causing shortages and economic chaos across the Western world. The embargo reshaped global politics, making oil a powerful weapon and providing that Arab unity could shake the entire world economy. By later October, both sides were exhausted. Thousands of lives have been lost, and neither could achieve total victory. The United Nations called for an immediate ceasefire, and on October 25th, 1973, the guns finally fell silent. The war had lasted only 19 days, but its impact would last for decades. Israel had suffered its heaviest losses since 1948, over 2,600 dead and 15,000 wounded. Arab nation too lost tons of thousands of soldiers. Both sides realized that endless wars would bring no real peace.